Listen up, Maryland, alongside Ryan Renner, Phil Vassar, and Ryan. We're here to recap another late recap. We apologize for that, but that's due. We have a good excuse this time. That's due to the Super Bowl last night. So I want to start off by saying congratulations to Matt Stafford, Eric Weddle, Aaron Donald, and the list goes on, right? Andrew Whitworth, Von Miller. Congratulations on winning the second Super Bowl in Rams franchise history.
Yeah, I mean, it was a good game. It's what we expected. I knew it'd be a close game, and the Rams prevailed. And like I said, it came down to the Bengals offensive line against the Rams defensive line. Bengals did pretty good all game, but eventually Aaron Donald prevailed and the Rams got the victory.
That's right. Well, in defense, I don't have to talk about it anymore. We already know defense came through again, right? So enough of that already. Enough NFL talk. We're going to focus on women's basketball, Ryan, as the UConn Huskies. And you said the rankings are going to come out in about another hour. We can't wait to stand by and see those new rankings. But as we come on this Monday to discuss the recap of yesterday's game, and that was on Fox again, UConn Huskies improved to 17-5 on the season as we approach March, and Marquette drops 17-7. Again, Marquette Golden Eagles, a great team, Ryan. They kept it close for UConn. This time the pressure's on you because I had to work, but you was able to watch it. So I'm expecting to hear a lot of feedback out of you and what you think. I can't wait for that. 72-58, Ryan. The score was kind of closer than what most teams keep it against UConn, but like you had mentioned to me, quarters 1 through 3, man, a lot of UConn fans were probably on the edge of their seat. What do you have?
Yeah, it was a close game, close to when I expected. I was glad to see yesterday that it was on Fox. I'm glad. I love seeing UConn women's basketball on Fox. Glad when I can watch it. But UConn, they never lost to Marquette. They're now 13-0 all time in program history. So UConn, 9 different starting lineups this season. And yesterday they were without Becker, Nelson Adota, and Ducharme yet again. UConn started out the game. They played a 2-3 zone. Didn't seem to affect Marquette that much. Both teams, they started out shooting the ball fairly well. AZ Fudd knocked down 2 threes. UConn, they missed some easy shots, though, some easy layups in the paint. Aliyah Edwards, she had a rough game, missed about 5 layups, finished the game 1 for 6 with 2 points. But UConn's 3-point shooting is really what kept them in this game. And through the first 3 quarters, like you mentioned, it just seemed like to me, UConn, they didn't have a lot of energy. They kept getting out hustled. They weren't getting the loose balls and the rebounds. UConn, they had good ball movement. They made good passes like we're accustomed to seeing. But sometimes I think they're looking to pass too much. They need to be more aggressive, drive in the lane, make drives to the baskets, try to draw some fouls. UConn, they didn't have any free throws taken until about 5 minutes left in the third quarter. And at some point, UConn, they needed to find their will to win. Someone needed to step up and lead the team. And that's what happened in the fourth quarter. Their defense intensity picked up. UConn forced some turnovers, and they scored off of those turnovers. Dorka, she made some threes. She had a very good game. AZ Fudd as well. She really caught fire from beyond the arc. But UConn's defense leads to their offense most of the time, and it's the reason they won yesterday's game.
So if I'd ask you who the player of the game was, because I know we focus so much on the point spread and how many points each player scored a game. But again, I wasn't able to watch it. If you were able to tell me the player of the game, I mean, would you go with AZ Fudd just because she scored 24, or did another player really stand out to you? You know, as far because you mentioned defense, and that's right. I'm glad you did because they only allowed 11 points. They only surrendered 11 points, right, to the Golden Eagles. And again, the defense did a great job. It looks like stepping up for UConn as they come away with 72-58 victory. So again, if I was to ask you the player of the game, who would you have to go with? Because again, quarters 1 through 3, tight ball game, but something happened there, Ryan, in the fourth.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I probably would go with AZ just because, it was everybody on UConn's defense that contributed to those turnovers. But AZ, she was just knocking down threes left and right. and really scoring off of those turnovers. So I would give the nod to her for player of the game, but Dorka's a close second for me. She made some good steals in that fourth quarter. She had 21 points and 3 of 5 from the 3-point line as well. And also Avina Westbrook, she came off the bench and shot an efficient 7 for 10 and scored 15 points. So like we said last episode, Gino went with the bigger lineup and started Dorka and Aliyah Edwards instead of Avina Westbrook. And I really do like Avina Westbrook coming off the bench. I think she feels comfortable in that role coming off the bench, and it proved again yesterday.
Yeah, it did. Again, both of you were texting me during the pretty much the whole game, and man, it had me nervous watching the score because I couldn't watch it, like I said, but I had to update it. I kept updating it on the ESPN app on my phone, and I'm like, man, Ryan, is this another one where they can't put back-to-back wins together? Or are we going to start seeing this team go, okay, they're going to win one, lose one, win one, and lose one? Because like you mentioned, I mean, by now, usually they would have their what it was the Big Ten conference, that is, not division. You call it conference.
Yeah, the Big East Conference. Yeah,
Big East. Yeah. So I mean, usually by now they would have their conference wrapped up, but it's a tight race.
Yeah, it is. I think they're only about a game ahead. They might be a game, and I think they are a game ahead of Villanova and Creighton at this point. But yeah, I mean, like you just said, usually at this point, they've only probably should have 1 or 2 losses and usually have that wrapped up. But that loss to Villanova that they suffered, that really kind of changed the perspective of this team, and especially with Olivia Nelson-Ododa, they really had to fight yesterday throughout the whole entire game to really finish off Marquette.
Talk about Villanova, man. I don't know. It's if this is updated. I mean, they've won 9 games in a row. Villanova women's basketball, and I'd say right now, if you look at the standings just in the conference, that is, I mean, the biggest threat to UConn. I mean, as far as, but I don't know. I would have to look at the schedule here. I don't think they have any games left against Villanova, but even though if I'm right, if they don't play them again, is that the biggest threat? A team that's won 9 in a row. I'm not too sure if you could point any other team out right now.
Yeah, I mean they're one of the only teams in the conference that know how to beat UConn in the first place. So
Yeah.
in that Big East tournament at the end of the season, all these conferences play their tournament to see who is the winner. But
Well, excuse me. I just clicked on it here, and it says that they are on a 1-game losing streak. So they must have recently lost. It looks like that 9-game winning streak is over.
Yeah, well, they must have lost yesterday then, but I still think that they're going to be the threat to UConn in the Big East Conference. But I don't think yesterday they were talking about a little bit heading into March Madness about the seeding, and they didn't have Villanova in March Madness. So that was pretty surprising to me to not have Villanova in March Madness. But maybe with a couple wins in the tournament and they can keep it going, they might find themselves in March Madness.
Well, I just see it. You're right. Yesterday they lost to Seton Hall. Seton Hall Pirates, Ryan, they topped them by 12, 72-60. So I'd tell you, man, you never know. But so talk a little bit about this. I want to go back to, this was kind of a different win for UConn. And when I say different, they didn't blow the team away in the first quarter and the second quarter. I kind of like this style of, I kind of like what Marquette provided UConn yesterday. They gave them a different look that UConn never really sees. Talk about how big that is moving forward, because and I said it, man, I have to make sure I bring this point up to Ryan Renner, right, with March coming up. Battle tested ball games for the UConn to show that they can hang in there, stay in the game when they're getting battle tested, and then eventually run away with it in the fourth quarter. How big is that, man? When you gave me 3 players that were already out, not playing, and yet they could all be back at full strength come March. So again, I think that this really speaks volumes. A lot of people would look like, oh man, UConn quarters 1 through 3, Marquette had them, they almost beat them. So UConn, you might want to just count them out. Man, I think that this actually speaks volumes. I think it's opposite of that.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right, and to win without Ducharme, Olivia, and Beckers, which
Mhm.
is really their three best players in my opinion, it really does speak volume. And you could tell yesterday, UConn really frustrated through those three quarters. At one point, Gino threw his water bottle at the floor.
Oh, did he?
It really wasn't looking good for those three quarters, but he must have lit a fire under them to start that
Yeah,
fourth quarter, because they really
yeah.
came out with a different type of energy and intensity that we didn't see in the first three quarters of that game. So hopefully for UConn, they can keep this momentum going. And like you mentioned before, not win, lose, win, lose. That's no good, especially coming up into March Madness. And for UConn, they don't lose very often. They don't lose back-to-back games. So hopefully they can string a couple wins together, get win the rest of their games against these, kind of easy in conference opponents, and head into March Madness, get healthy, fully healthy, get all their players back. And now they get a big break and don't play until Friday. And to me, it seemed like they're a little bit tired. So much needed break coming up as well.
Yeah, and we promise you, we don't have time today. We'll get back to them comments on them other videos. We promise you all. And again, we'll see what Ryan thinks about them great comments in the next episode. So make sure everyone stays tuned for that. And then just before we head out, Ryan, give credit to Marquette. Give credit where it's due. I think Carlin, number 32, Liza Carlin, guard. It looks like for Marquette. I mean, she did an incredible job, right? I mean, it looks like she scored 15. She led all scorers for Marquette. She had 9 rebounds, 1 assist, and she played 35 minutes. So Carlin, it looked like early in the game, she was
Yeah.
really on fire. And
Yeah.
UConn never had an answer for her early, that is.
Yeah, and Jordan King as well, 14 points, 5 assists. Carissa McLaughlin too also had 10 points as well. Yeah, I mean those players for Marquette, they were hot early. They started out hot, UConn 2-3 zone, and then they switched to man to man. And whatever they threw at Marquette, that they really couldn't stop them. But their defense picked up, and it's really the reason why UConn won that game. They forced turnovers. Had a couple block shots in the paint as well by Dorka. She really stepped up big in the absence of Olivia Nelson-Ododa. And defense, it led to their offense like it usually does, and like we've seen throughout this whole entire season. So I think that's going to be the key moving forward, is UConn's defense.
Any update on Paige Beckers? I know I keep asking, and you're like, Phil, stop asking me. I'm seeing I can't get enough of these videos on YouTube because everyone I see, there was one of, it's funny, there was one that I saw of it says Paige Beckers has a big announcement or something like that, and I click on it, but it was actually she made agreement to it was like I don't want to call it a charity fund, but I'm not too, I forget what it was now, but I thought it was actually an announcement that, hey, I have a date when I'm returning. I'm like, oh man. So but as I'm saying, she is starting to shoot the ball some, I think, and joining the team in pregame warmups. So that's definitely a good sign.
Yeah, they showed her yesterday on the court shooting some threes and obviously making them, and dribbling the ball around. So that's always good to see. But there's no timetable for return. There's no specific date for her return. But hopefully she can return before March Madness. I think that's her goal, and I think that's the team's goal. But obviously, like they were saying yesterday, before the game, that we don't, they don't want to risk any further injury or rush her back, because her future is so bright for the WNBA. And if they rush her back and then she gets injured even worse, her possibly her whole career could be over. So certainly don't want to rush her back, and she still has some good years with UConn still ahead. So but hopefully she can fully return healthy, and UConn can make a run in March Madness.
And your thoughts on this break coming up, because they have Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday off. And you told me, of course, we could always use a break, right? You and I could always use a break. But how big is that? You said that, man, Phil, I mean, they need this break.
Yeah, I think they do because it just seemed like they didn't have any energy. They were tired, get out hustled, and that's something that they're not accustomed to seeing. These teams, you don't usually out hustle UConn.
Right.
Loose balls and rebounds that they just weren't getting,
Yeah.
and miss layups and miss shots. It's just uncharacteristic. Really easy shots, and that they could have really put Marquette away earlier, but wide open layups that they were missing. So just a really sloppy start to the game. So I think there's definitely some things they can work on in practice this week, to prepare them, and hopefully a Nelson Adota and Ducharme will be able to return for that game on Friday.
Next stop is a date with the Xavier Musketeers, Ryan, Cincinnati, Ohio. And we will be back on this podcast to recap that game. UConn Huskies, Xavier Musketeers, Ryan, Friday the 18th. I will see you Friday night.